All right, so the last, I guess I'll call it other talk, is Anu from IBM, and has her title changed? No. Okay, so she's going to be talking about making massive data sets nimble and flexible with IBM Cloud Object Storage.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you. So in this page, I tried to put everything that we would be talking about today. So the title of this talk is Making Massive Data Sets Nimble and Flexible. With iRODS, there's a lot of data, and with IBM Cloud Object Storage, we're able to make it flexible in how you access it, how you deploy it, and how you manage it. And thank you for iRODS and the Utrecht University for hosting this. It's been wonderful. Just perfect, right on schedule. So as part of this talk, in specific, I'll be talking to you about the release of the IBM Cloud Object Storage. Also, you'll hear me referring to it as IBM COS iRODS plugin. It's the new object storage plugin for iRODS. My name is Anu Khera. I'm a senior offering manager for IBM, in specific the IBM's Cloud Object Storage organization, IBM's Watson and Cognitive and Cloud Object Storage organization, or that part of the world. I have my email address here as well. You can note it down if you need to reach to me any point after this. I'm happy to connect with you to answer any questions or any of be able to make, take that next step. So I want to give you a little bit of background before we get into a lot of the details. So IBM Cloud Object Storage, or IBM COS, is built on a technology that was pioneered by CleverSafe. So CleverSafe was a company that was founded in 2004, and it was acquired by IBM in 2015. So as one would say, I'm part of the legacy CleverSafe team that was acquired into IBM. History on CleverSafe, it has about 400 plus patents on its own for the technology for the IBM Cloud Object Storage. Were considered at that time one of the leaders in that, who kind of took that direction. Have IDC and Gartner as calling us the leader in for 2016, and going through that assessment for 2017. And we have multiple vendors who have data that's more than 100 petabyte systems. So scalable is definitely something we understand, are able to support. A little bit about the technology. Not sure how many are familiar with it, but typically for a traditional storage, if you have a 1 terabyte file, you would need to replicate it and be able to place it in 3 different data centers to be able to get that availability, reliability, and so forth. And that typically means you need to have, one, and you have a little bit of an overhead associated with that data, and you have a lot of power, space, software, network stuff, and also admins who are trying to manage it in 3 different data centers. So that overhead, in addition to that overhead, you have, 3 times 3.6 terabytes of data that you have to manage for that 1 terabyte of actual raw data. With the CleverSafe technology, or with the Cloud Object Storage technology, for a 1 terabyte of data, the way that it works is it takes that data, ingests it, encrypts it, and basically slices it up and sends it to 3 data centers across, that could be geographically spread across wherever you want your data to be. And again, note, I did not say it has to be replicated. So which means, with that data being spread across 3 sites, it's really a little bit of an overhead, is 1.7 terabyte of data, which means you have less storage, less power, all that goodies that comes along with it, and all of that can be managed from 1 location, so really 1 admin managing that. And from a comparison perspective, working with multiple clients, we're able to prove a 70% TCO on storage specifically for the data. So you're thinking, how does this go with iRODS? Well, it's a storage solution that, from an IBM Cloud Object Storage perspective, you're able to help figure out whether you want your data in a public cloud type of an environment, or something that you want in your own data center, or you want it to be a little bit in cloud and a little bit in on-prem with the same namespace for your data. So all those three options are there, for all these presentations that we've seen where you have a need of data that comes at a cost that's very cost efficient. And this is a relatively new technology, but it's definitely coming up fast. So now a little bit more about what I'm really here to talk to you about today. So as I mentioned, IBM COS is truly in the space of scalable object storage that supports the standard S3 API. And IBM is committed to deliver an end-to-end software-defined storage solutions with IBM Cloud Object Storage, as well as working with communities like iRODS. In specific, we have been an iRODS member for some time as part of IBM, as well as part of CleverSafe for many, many, many years. And I'll have to do research, I should have done that. But I know both IBM, different organizations within IBM before we became part of IBM, had been part of iRODS as part of their Respect and Scale, Protect, and Empower 8 systems and so forth. So directionally for this product, we're investing into a long-term strategy with iRODS, focusing on interoperability with the object storage platforms, as well as optimizing of iRODS with interfacing with an IBM Cloud Object Storage. So with that note, pleased to announce as part of this meeting, it hasn't been done before, the release of the Cloud Object Storage plugin, iRODS plugin. So the problem statement that really came around for us to get into this direction was iRODS users, we had clients come to us asking for a way to interface with object storage that's fast, direct, and optimized for objects. And there are many use cases that are identified where that requires a random access workflow and also large files, greater than 100 gig at times. So the current plugin does not provide that native support for random access workflows and including offset reads and writes. So this is where and additionally the plugin has to be deployed as a compound resource using a POSIX file system cache, like a UFS, which sometimes, based on the size of your object that you're trying to ingest, it's large. So we looked into that, how to address it, and that's where this plugin came about to be. So essentially, it's optimized for object storage, specifically IBM COS, and it does not require a separate cache layer, and also provides native support for the I/O operations that's expected of most iRODS applications. In addition, it works with COS, as well as it comes with this commits and comes with support of different iRODS versions as well as platforms. And I'll just share that towards the end of the slides. So I'll kind of just walk through how the current iRODS S3 workflow is. It provides the compound resource is needed in addition to the plugin to be, the compound resource in addition is essentially the S3 plugin with the UFS, the Unix file system, to be able to interface to an S3 resource. So you would pair the UFS resource with an S3 resource, and that UFS resource will then add POSIX operations to an immutable S3 archive. So when you're doing a put, which is writing objects to your S3 resource, the data objects are delegated to the cache first and then registered, and then a copy is sent to the S3 object store, and then the writes then result in an immutable object. For gets, again, the same thing. The replica is staged for a cache if it's required, and the read always happens from the cache back to the application. So even if it's a few bytes of read, the entire object is typically cached. So this can result in a large and unpredictable file cache. So the way that we've modified the workflow with that plugin is essentially we have a native support for the POSIX interface to S3. So there is no file system cache that's required. And like I said, the POSIX operations are supported in the plugin. For writing of object, which is just a put command, the objects are broken into chunks or slices and then are written, dispersed into the object store, into your data centers that could be dispersed or regional if you're not looking for availability. And your offset writes then only require updating the chunks that need to be updated versus doing the math of the entire object itself. Again, for the reading, only the required chunks are read from the object store, which means only a few bytes are read. Thus, as you can just think, there's performance implications in efficiencies and things like that. So this kind of summarizes, where the IBM COS plugin comes in from a compatibility perspective. Being able to be compatible with the IBM Cloud Object Storage portfolio of storage, open source. We do plan to open source the plugin back to the community and commit as well. Something we'll work through, the team. And it is POSIX compliant natively. There is no need of cache. It is optimized for input and output I/O, as well as is optimized for how the Cloud Object Storage works. So just more information on the specs here. The features are, it's native, full POSIX compliance. I'm repeating this information over and over again. It's optimized for workflows and use cases that iRODS typically have a need for. There is multiple authentication modes, based on what you support, whether it's a basic auth of username and password, or whether it's V3, V4, and at a future time, our public cloud, as well as our private cloud, would also be able to support OAuth 2. From a support of iRODS version, we date all the way back to supporting from 4.0, there's a dot missing, 4.0.3 to 4.1.2, and we plan to also continue to support as the consortium comes out with the 4.2.0 release. Currently, it's available on Ubuntu 12 and 14, and we're planning on having the availability on the remaining operating systems as well. So really, from a deployment perspective, it can reside in a VM that you instantiate right next to the iRODS, instance. So it's something that can be housed within your iRODS instance in one of the VMs. Doesn't really require a separate huge server and all of that stuff. From an object store perspective, as I've talked to you in my initial slides, it's something that can reside within your data center, or if you're looking to try out the cloud, it can also be part of your cloud, where it can also interface to a cloud type of an object store as well. So how you would see is really you would have one or multiple iROD instances, where you would have your plugin residing as in the path of your applications wanting to store into an S3 resource, where you have those options of whether it's public, private, or hybrid, making it flexible for you to access it in the way that you want to access it. Scalable, it can go from terabytes to petabytes, and it's cost effective, it's simple, really there's not much to it. If your applications speak S3, or if your applications require POSIX, or not S3, POSIX, then this is just something, it's a plug and play that will work. And that's what I have to present. Any questions?
Will you give technical support for this plugin? Because
Yes.
you open source it, but
Yes, we will provide the same level of support that you would expect from an IBM product. So you would have level 1, level 2, level 3, absolutely.
Yeah. Are also other S3 varieties supported with this plugin, so that we get a first class citizen interface for that?
When you say other S3 varieties, what do you
S3,
mean?
for example, AWS.
Yes, it will work with AWS as well. We wouldn't have done the testing for it, but because our S3 is compatible with AWS, it should seamlessly work as well. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
But again, you will not be able to get the efficiencies out of it because the offset reads and writes, well, yeah, we'll have to see. It should work. It's an S3 command. All right, thank you.